Yeah, yeah, that's fine. All right, good evening, everybody. My name's Dan Maria, the Bylaws Committee. I will be calling this meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. on Monday, November 24th. Um, I will now be observing some ground rules. Angel, if you could put them back up on the screen for me. All right, no one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand, wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon. You will find the raise hand function there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. All right. I already called the meeting in order, so Angel, if you could take the roll.
Sure. Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Jose Altamirano.
Present.
Dan Brian.
Present.
Jill Jones.
Present.
Sage Mason.
Present.
Jessica Morris.
Present.
Hillary Fonte. Present. Ashley Rodriguez. We have one.
All right, thank you. With that said, we'll move to the adoption of tonight's agenda. If I don't see any objections, the agenda will be adopted. Okay, seeing no objections, then the agenda has been adopted. Approval of meeting minutes. Angel, we have them all, right? I did it. All right, so we're good then. I'm up to date. And that was what, our October meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so if I don't see any objections, we will adopt the minutes from our October meeting. All right, seeing no objections, then the minutes for our October meeting have been adopted. And now we will move into announcements and informational updates. I don't have any. Does anybody? Okay, we're just going to go into presentations, discussions. Is Xavier on? I know he wanted to speak to two things tonight. Xavier?
Evening,
You there?
everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Go ahead.
All right, great. The Wi-Fi is a little spotty. I'm out of town visiting family and everything, so I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I want to say thank you to the committee for all the work you've done thus far, given the remit. Two emails I sent earlier, as I stated I would, were observations with the board oversight committee and generally just stipulating the pros and cons of what could take place. That's for your consumption. It's, again, both best and worst case scenario. I think that when onboarding, it's a great tool on reminding members. Fantastic. We need more of that. That's often fallen on one or two, maybe three people at max. We've often asked the chairs of committees to continue on with that work. Long and short of it, having a body that can constantly be there helping with the mentoring is not a bad idea at all. The other things I've weighed out, I do think, again, my particular position on this is advisory is great, because if you're taking the work of the committee, executive committee, the bulk of our work, and farming it out, giving the recommendation, saying this is our recommendation after we've done our research or review, and then for us to be able to act as an executive body and make a determination, that's a useful tool and usefulness for the committee members' time. All in all, I think from a superstructure point of view, the chair of that committee should be selected by the chair of the board, as all committees are. I think that is crucial. The other informations there, I think, are you can get into the weeds as you need to this evening or subsequent meetings. I would recommend not letting perfection be the enemy of good, but in the same sense as our previous bylaws iteration with Alex, who had led it, it took a better course of 12 months to really get to that type of overhaul. Although this wasn't the remit for this bylaws committee, if it's something that wishes to be pursued, it will have to take a necessary review, and that is my recommendation. The other component that I sent over, we had our elections. Again, congratulations to all those who participated and keeping it as civil as possible. I commend all of you. At the end of the day, and just as I commend and thank everyone on this committee, I implore everyone to look at the reality as going to city law. They have made a recommendation to us that, given the timeline we are needing to determine what is eligible when it comes to the term or word shall. You saw my email. Does it need to be rushed tonight? No, it does not. I will say that we can take our time with it, but it is a recommendation that came by city law. But I wanted to make sure it was before you all because it was shared with the elections committee. And again, you don't need to go into the weeds. Have a thoughtful conversation. Again, but it is something that will need to be addressed down the road. I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear because of the construct of our bylaws. At the end of the day, I know Adem has done a huge amount of research. Thank you, Adem, for all of that, the thoughtfulness, and to all the members of this committee. Again, you don't let perfection be the enemy of good. But in the same sense, the house is not on fire, as I said last month. So keep that in mind. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I'm here if you have any follow-up questions for a bit before I have to deal with family. And I wish
Thank
I could
you.
be with you all because love you all to death.
We love you too,
Happy Thanksgiving.
but I don't mind the distance.
Oh, you got jokes. I got jokes.
Do we have any questions for Xavier? All right, Xavier, I mean,
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Jessica, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
No, I didn't raise my hand. I didn't know where the hand function was, but
You're all good.
very good. I'm not sure. It's both a serious inquiry because I don't know the answer, and also recognizing that it was intended with some levity. And Xavier, I appreciate that you have come around to recognizing the potential benefits of an entity like the Board Oversight Committee, which evolved from an initial response. And I agree with your suggestion to acknowledge that similarly with the second point, there isn't necessarily an urgent need to do this immediately, but to do it right. My question is, what is a kangaroo court? You mentioned it in your email, and I know, Adem, you're laughing. I am too. It sounds like fun. I'm sure it's not. What is it? Thank you.
Okay. It's as my kids would probably say, that's probably worth a Google. And I'm being tongue in cheek a little bit. It's okay. It's a kangaroo court is, if you will, in the vernacular, an unofficial, irregular, unfair judicial body that disregards established legal principles, right? Due process. Again, it's worse. And again, I'm doing this from a logic construct. Very simple. Is what if you have someone who has a bone to pick and is throwing out barbs all the time, going at it all the time because they just, whatever. I'm not saying that would be the case with this body or anybody. It's that we have to think, and again, this is my producer mentality, and Adem knows this as well as Nilsa, as others, is you have to play the most beneficial case and the worst case of any scenario, because then you've in theory gamed everything out. And again, we would not want a body to be biased in any way, shape, or form, in any way it could be imagined. But I think in this particular instance, the way it was originally presented versus what the language that was drafted, and there's no fault. It's an exploration. So I'm looking at it from an academic point of view, equally so. So that's what it is. We want to make sure that every step we take is just a very impartial. We look at it and saying, okay, how could this play out? And it's not just us who are exploring these modalities. You have other boards as well who look at things as logically. So that's it. I hope it explains.
Sage? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jessica. Sorry.
Just to clarify, the statement is intended to suggest that the entity, the Board Oversight Committee, is necessary but should not stymie overall authority amidst the executive committee of the board. Is that what I'm understanding?
What was relayed in the email was very simple. An advisory capacity to, if you're truly defarmed, because the pitch, as I said last month, was to take the heavy lifting off of executive. much of that heavy lifting is the time and research, the time discussion. It's not an and then evaluating and coming to determination. So if they were to issue forth a recommendation saying, and we can then review a report, that takes off a burden, but then executives still charged and with making that decision. So yes, in that sense. Does that clarify for you, Jessica?
It does. Just one further follow-up with the understanding that it's typically accepted, like at full board, that the work happens at committee, and very often there's little debate when a committee position is put forward. Are you suggesting that that would be a similar, that the work would happen at the board oversight committee, that it would be put forward and would generally be accepted in its work?
It would, yeah. So in an ideal situation, the work would be done at committee and referred to executive for rendering a determination. Think of it as a body who is doing their charged with the research and making a recommendation, and then executive would then take that and say, based on X, Y, and Z factors, we would like to move forward, or based after review, we found these issues and we would like to refer it back. Think of it as in those terms.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, just again, like
Sage?
Yeah, I would just say this, Xavier, and I understand and I respect your view. And I'm kind of agnostic to what like this committee decides to do with it. But while you, on one end of the spectrum, like you referenced, like you got to think about the best case scenario and also the worst case scenario. I think you can say the same for not the board oversight committee, but for the executive committee. And you could have a situation where the executive committee is just not doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it would kind of be pointless if the board oversight committee, if you see that as an opportunity for a committee to speak and say, hey, executive committee, we, like chair, we need to follow the bylaws, like maybe similar to what happened with the composition this year of the elections committee, which should have been done, you know, a couple weeks prior to when it was actually done. It's important to have a body that can say to the executive committee or the chair, without it just being advisory to them, like, hey, you didn't follow the bylaws. And so I think it's true that you could have like a good board oversight committee or a bad board oversight committee. Ultimately, anything, even as is currently contemplated, would go to the full board to be voted on and ratified. And so I don't think it would be like, I think it just creates an additional hurdle and kind of undermines the purpose of the board oversight committee if it's just an advisory committee to the executive committee, rather than like proposing things to the full board, which basically every other committee does right now.
so you've kind of conflated a handful of things, but that's okay. I'll address them. With the elections committee, it was established by the date. It didn't get announced until 2 days later due to global events, which was declared to the board. So that's one, just to clarify for the public that it was, and that's why it was announced at executive as well as its full membership. Regrettably, being stuck in the air and being not permitted to fly the day before because of geopolitical events. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear, because I don't like misinformation. The other, Pat, your note, I hear your note, and I appreciate all the work you've done, Sage, as well as this committee. There's not, I said I would bring forth my perspective from, experience from dating back to 2009, and that's all I'm doing. But I will raise another issue, for example, with parliamentary procedure. When it comes to ruling what the chair has assessed within compliance to the bylaws, one of the responsibilities of the chair is to rule on meeting matters and to have another body overriding in a worst case scenario, right? Say you have them overriding, not a single person is a parliamentarian, but the sitting chair is a parliamentarian. I would make the recommendation in crafting a standing committee such as it was recommended, that you would have a parliamentarian sitting on the committee that would further strengthen that when it comes to assessing whether the bylaws have been adhered to, whether parliamentary procedure has been adhered to. But again, this is just offering you guys information to have a discussion. to the length that you can do this evening. And you, again, you be thoughtful. I forget how Jessica paraphrased it, but to make sure that it is a very thoughtful process, that we're not rushing anything. So I think that's crucial. So, but I appreciate the work that you've done and everyone has done, and I value everyone's positions on it. So thank you very much for your question.
Thank you. All right. So there were two topics, I think. One was elections and one was the board oversight. Let's just talk about this elections thing first. I'll say my thoughts after considering everything, and then we can see what anyone else thinks. Angela, if I say anything I'll try to spare you to have to say it, but if I say anything that we talked about that differs, you tell me. We just had an election. It was like a week ago, not even. And it went fine. We have officers in place for 2 years. Nobody is not going to be able to not run next time or anything like that, except the people that were already not able to run. There isn't a crisis here or a fire. Angel showed me a list like in the coming years of like who can't run. Am I wrong to say that it's not very impactful? We can fix all this. There might be little things that have to be fixed. There is nothing. Me and Angel talked about, I think the idea here is that there has to be language that differentiates right now. This is the main point that I'm taking. That differentiates what disqualifies someone, right? So it's being termed off the board versus being up for reappointment, right? They're two very different things. If you're termed off, right, and let's just use an example, right, you can't run because there's no chance that you will be able to finish your term. You were termed off in a year and a half, and you need to be here for 2. I'll use me as an example. I am up for reappointment in coming, and but the idea is I will most likely be reappointed. You don't get disqualified because you're up for reappointment. There's been this idea now that Xavier's had a conversation with city law, which, in all honesty, I'm not saying I don't understand the point of the conversation or where it's gone. I mean, we could always implement it to make it more clear that maybe there needs to be something that really specifies that difference, just so that there's no more conversation about this. Where if you're up for reappointment, you can run, but if you're being termed out within the 2 years, you cannot run. And so the reason I'm saying that is this is not a big deal. This is something that we could put into place. We could do that now. We could do that in 6 months. We could do that in a year. It doesn't really matter. We just have to we'll do it. I said at full board when I was going over the bylaws about addressing anything outstanding here, and I said as long as it's done with plenty of time before the next election, it won't be a problem. But in all honesty, I just think like my sentiment is whatever the group wants to do, but I'm a little bit tired of us continuing to talk about the election and this and that and making everything a lot more complicated than it needs to be. We have bylaws. I thought they're pretty self-explanatory. You can't serve, you're not going to run. Like, right? We've always had this issue of that you could be up for a reappointment and not. This language has always been in there. It's always said shall, or at least it has for some time. Am I right, Angel? And you've always been up for. You could always be up for a reappointment when you're serving. So all of a sudden, this became an issue now because of term limits. So I don't really personally understand the urgency. It's like these rules get changed. We're given no guidance. Then we're told, oh, okay, you reached out. Now we're going to tell you what to do. There's been, in my opinion, no proactiveness on the part of the city to give us clarity until we come running there. Sage?
Does anybody else have any thoughts?
Well, I'll have a vote, but I'll stay after you
Okay.
because I'm not part of the committee.
Okay. I just wanted to say, so I don't think it's like that big of an issue. But and I'm just not remembering if we reached a conclusion as a committee as to whether we thought, and I know city law. Like
Yeah, go ahead. I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
But if we said like you can't run in that situation.
Right, and we said no. We didn't pass that. I think we took a vote on if you couldn't finish the term, that you could not run. That motion did not carry at this committee. What ended up happening though after that was that the word shall was looked into, and it was like, oh, you know what? This already says you can't do it. So that was the thing, was saying, well, okay, we put a motion out, it didn't carry. Then we might have all thought, oh, okay, like you could run now if you could only serve 18 months. Then the shall came in. Shall is a requirement now. Then there's been discussion of whether, like, there's an acknowledgement, and Xavier, if you're still on, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't like to speak for other people, but just to sum this up quickly, shall is, as far as I was told by Xavier, the city law told him, means must. But that there's been pushback about, oh, well, some people don't think it, so should it be more clear? But shall means must. So once we determined that, then it meant you had to be able to finish the full term. So that's why that, without even that passing, that rule kind of went into place.
Yeah, so I would just say to that, I think, and I feel like we kind of made that decision because we needed to do something on like a certain timeline, and we like interpreted shall to mean what you just explained, because we didn't want to, it was like too late to do another amendment within like a time.
Something like that, yeah. Or because it's also because it is actually what it means though.
Maybe, but I would just say if the committee wants to like disqualify somebody because they're not going to finish their term, like we can just vote on that, and then there's like a million easier ways to address that in the bylaws than like relying on the word shall, which is, I think, kind of silly.
And that's why I think we could think about this. I don't know. Nilsa, you keep making faces. Do you just think we should take a position tonight? I don't see what issue we're solving, to be honest.
Exactly. I'm listening and with all due respect, Chair and Chair-elect. I'm looking at what the revisions have been suggested by the executive at the time, and I'm not sure where the committee is on those revisions. But the fact of the matter is that shall has, as I've always understood it, means that it must. You know, you shall do this, you will do this. It's my understanding that if we have a 2-year term, there should be two 4-year terms, right? And it should be, I could run for vice chair, but why should I lock up the board serving a 1.5 years? Like, how is that, where does the transition come in, especially with term limits? And that was a good point that was brought up. Why should anyone has maybe 8 years like I do, tie up the board for 6 if it was 3 terms, or for 4, it seems more reasonable, it's 50%, cannot be more, but I'm not quite sure when you saying that you can take your time, and I'm just throwing it out there and that's not for an answer, is how many problems do you think that the bylaws has, or how many fixes does it have? And what is the extension here? Because this has the capability, well, the possibility of really continuing when there's not a lot of fixes, and then the danger is when people think that this needs massive overhauls, and it really doesn't. This was all an election.
I'm not saying that.
Found errors.
I'm not saying
and
that.
I don't mean you, I just mean like, take your time, do this, do that, and I'm just wondering.
I meant like park it. No, right. Like maybe we don't have this. I mean, like, when I say we could revisit this, I don't mean then let's keep this committee going for 6 months because we have to revisit something in 6 months. I mean, if we're done and we don't feel like doing that right now, we can revisit it. Or we could make a decision quickly. It's not that big of a deal. If we want to make a clarifier that you cannot run if you're going to be termed off within the 2 years, but you can run if it's only a reappointment, then that solves the issue. Easy. So if we wanted to pass something like that tonight, we could do it and we can go done. Because that's the issue. Go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you. From the perspective of, I'll just say, first and foremost, nobody likes enforcement, generally. And so when, there's a necessity to enforce something that has any question, from any dimension that maybe unclear or not straightforward, it can become contentious unnecessarily. Speaking as the elections chair still, even though the election is finished, we're not quite finished with our responsibilities. There's an intention to meet in December, and an intention by the committee to put forward a number of points of process that may be a best practice to ensure that things go smoothly next round. Those recommendations may not rise to the level of being changes to the bylaws, but I think it is intended to be put forward with the hope that there's an acknowledgement by the incoming chair for whatever those recommendations may be. One of which deals with this very issue of eligibility upfront, so that when it comes time for an election, there's really no question about eligibility, and that practice of maintaining a sort of a list of eligibility based on the criteria as it's understood will be encouraged going forward. I would urge this committee to take action within a reasonable period of time to make any small changes that would make any future elections chair's job a little bit easier, which means clarifying in any number of ways, such as including the word just in the two articles that were in question at one point, or providing a definition of the word shall where there is then no question in how it's being used in this document, given that we are all not legally trained or parliamentarians or any of that. We're just people here trying to do community work. So those clarifications, I don't doubt, will help those who are yet to be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I'm gonna say, yeah, I'll call you in a second. I think we could, Xavier wrote the language, and I'm not in disagreement with what it says personally. It would be added to Article 2, Part B, it would be number 9. Right now it ends at 8, right? And it reads, in order to complete the term of service, a member who is a candidate shall be eligible for reappointment by the Manhattan Borough President's office. That solves it. That's it. We could adopt that language right now, and that issue will be resolved. If we want to add a definition for shall, we can also do that and just be like, as it pertains to our bylaws, the word shall means a requirement, and something along those lines. Sage, and then I'll go to Xavier.
One thing is I would want to wait a month just to think more about the language proposed. And two, I think defining shall is, we shouldn't do that.
No, oh, sorry.
Okay,
I
good.
agree with you. No, I had a question about it for.
Well, I want to know why, actually, before.
That's just like such a, like nobody defines shall. You can define like is, but, for, like shall, any word can be ambiguous. Like every word in the dictionary is like many possible. There's way easier, clearer ways.
Well, we could change it to must.
Or just say like somewhere else if we want to, because again, maybe I think this, I'm persuaded and I'm frequently reminded of Derek's point when we were discussing this as a committee, where he said, you don't have to create a restriction, just people will know that if this person is.
Well, then that's already been, then we don't even need to do it. I feel like we already know what we can't. I agree with what you're saying. And if that's the approach, that's kind of been why earlier in this meeting, I was saying.
Well, I wasn't saying that. So I'm saying if this person runs and they're about to be.
Right, turned off,
then people, I don't know if that's where you were going. But people just will know that when they're voting and probably won't vote for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know why here's my question. Why do we have to do that? We're all going to be subjected to this at one point or another. Everybody. So this rule is not fair. We're at a point where when we're all gone and all these weird terms like you're getting appointed in 2026 and 2027, and every year after that, you are going to be subjected, those people will be subjected to the same things, for the most part. Maybe there could be little nuances, but the idea is the rules are the rules then. Why are we afraid of just saying that if you can't finish a 2-year term, and this board has a 2-year term, that you are not able to run? There are things that, I've said this in earlier meetings, you do not run for president of the United States if you're 33 years old in this country. You have to be 35. We don't allow somebody to run when they're 33 and then people just don't vote for them. That's not how it works. So I don't know why we have to be so opposed to just making, because this is what happens now. We're going to keep having these conversations when we could just put this to rest and not spend 2 hours every month talking about our elections and talking about the community. That's just my opinion. Xavier, then Nelson.
I'll let,
Valerie, committee, then
yeah.
Xavier.
But I'll let Valerie and Nilsa speak, please. I'll let them speak before I chime in.
No, I think there's one other committee that has a parliamentarian. Is there any reason why we don't have one?
What committee that's for?
Somewhere down.
Oh, you mean another board?
Another board, yes. another board. Is there any?
I can't speak to that.
So could we vote on having one or think about having one?
I've thrown the idea out because I read what you read, that there is another board that has a position of parliamentarian, and I suggested that as an idea.
That would solve a lot of.
I mean, it would and it wouldn't, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been in a lot of meetings here where a parliamentarian could be sitting at the table and people will start to question what they're saying. It's just the facts of the way a meeting is gonna work. All I'm saying is, as we've said at this table too, I think we all have the ability to understand on some things what's just the straightest distance between 2 points. It's a line, straight line. Straight line is the closest distance between 2 points, whatever. Shortest. Why can't we disqualify people if they can't serve the full term? Why? What is the apprehension in just putting, we did it just now. So someone is sitting at the table who could not run, right? Were you okay with that? Did you understand that that was a rule? We have another person with his hand up right there, accepted it. Why is there an issue here?
You can run.
But we didn't do it. I mean, it was like
Well,
part
he couldn't
of,
run for different reasons.
it was part of the,
So
what's it called, the charter.
So let me ask you,
Changes.
if you have 14 months left on the board, do you think you should run if it's a 2-year term? If you know going into the election that you cannot finish the term that you are running for, should you run? If you know you can't. Well, if I was hiring somebody for a job and I told them the requirement is a year, would they be doing the right thing, coming to interview for the job and get the job if they knew that they could only do it for 6 months no matter what? If I tell you you have to be at these meetings at 6:30 and you know that you'll never be here, you'll only be here at 8, should you come sign up for these meetings? I mean, this is all that same principle. It's like, you know. So why are you doing it? And then my question is it better for you or is it better for the board?
It's the same way some people who have never been physically to a meeting, knowing that you're supposed to at least try to be physically to a meeting, never been physically to a meeting, and they're on the board.
Oh, I agree with you. The problem
I mean,
is,
we could go on and
the
on.
problem is we don't put people on the board. We should be doing a better job of removing them when they do that. I agree. But, you know, there are rules with that too. You don't have to be here. You could still be present.
That's not what the charter says.
Yeah, but I know.
So I'm just saying, if we
I hear you.
can make leeway for one, we can make leeway for something else.
Right, but would you want to make leeway for the person that's in charge of this whole board? To say, because here's my thing. You want to be chair. And you know that it takes 2 years and you're running and you know you can't do 8 months. So now what you've just essentially done is now you're creating a need for a special election right off the bat. You're basically telling people that whoever that vice chair is going to be chair for a minute. So now they have to vote considering who their vice chair is might be chair as well, and that they are walking into a special election. Why would any board want to do that? That's why the idea of 1-year elections was shot down, because as someone who just went, you cannot successfully do the work of this board this way. Just can't do it. We've wasted so much time at this table, if I'm being honest, and I blame myself for a lot of that. And I think to get the simple solution, Sage.
Well, I think if we do nothing, it's fine, because,
I agree with that too.
Yeah, so the shortest distance between
To do
2
nothing
points.
and do what we did.
Yeah, do nothing, maybe do what we did, there's like a question, but even if we let somebody run who's going to be term limited, like that would just be part of the election. Like,
Okay.
Maybe
I'm
don't make it
open,
creative.
I'm not, like,
No,
I'm
but-
just making the devil's advocate argument, because that's what I think, but I personally don't care. But, I mean, I'm just trying to make it what would work best for this board, is my opinion. Nelsa?
So I'm a
Then
little-
Xavier, I'm sorry. Nelsa, then Xavier.
So I'm a little confused because this bylaws committee came about from recommendations that were done by the executive about the 3 years, the 2 years, the amount, who can run, who can't run. So for us, for you all to ignore that, and I've been the elections committee chair here about 4 times. And I've never had a problem doing elections. My elections always went smooth and my committees were top notch, thank God, right? This time around, there's questions about the word shall and this and that. You're going off the reservation, right? The fact of the matter is that this is not about me as a term limit, and people came to me to run for chair for 3rd term this time around, right? I said no, because it's not about me being able to run for chair and be a chair for a year and a half. It's about the board continuity. This is the first time that we are going to transition people off. That's important, right? You don't want to introduce, there's already a process happening where people are going to be turned off, and then you have to be off. So your historical knowledge will stay, but for 2 years, people are not supposed to reapply, depending on who you talk to, right? I don't see the issue where, from a board perspective, you're trying to do the best thing for the board. It's not about the body, it's about the board.
Or about any individual either.
Or any individual. So if it's a 2-year term, I should be able to serve a 2-year term. If I can't serve a 2-year term,
You should
I have
run.
no business putting my name out there. And I should be able, all I have to do is serve a 2-year term. I don't have to serve 2 consecutive 2-year terms.
No, just 1 2-year term.
Right? But I have to be able to finish what I start, or be able to be appointed so that I can finish. And that's how it's always been. So to hear all this going back and forth about a process that's always been, I'm getting a little confused.
I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna let Xavier talk. I'm gonna table this for tonight. I said it wasn't urgent. I don't wanna waste any more time. What we decide here tonight does not matter. I don't care if we talk about it for a year. Because what Jessica said, and I agree, I'd rather address things sooner rather than later. My hope is it will still be sooner. I'm of the opinion that I shared, but granted, the board will have to support that idea. But otherwise, I just think that we're gonna continue to waste each other's times on the off chance that like one person might wake up one day and go, oh, you know what? I'm gonna run and I can't finish it, and too bad. Like I'm not interested in preserving that person's ability to do that, because we also all know now that you can run. If you decide to wait till then, well, we'd all be in that predicament. So I'm gonna let Xavier talk, and then we'll move to board oversight, and then that'll be it. All right, go ahead, Xavier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam, and thank you, Nelsa, Valerie, say everyone, Jessica. Gonna remind, look, like I said, not on fire, but based on the expediency with which it was pushed to make an inquiry to city law about the definition of shall, information which was received, which you were all in possession of, stipulated terms and conditions that would have, under the current construct of our bylaws, DQ'd everyone. And so they said, using the rule of reason, we should go forward with those that are eligible for reappointment. I don't care if you deal with it now and several months from now, like again, but the onus was on me to make sure that was communicated as it was to the elections committee for clarification. That's it. We are where we are. But if someone wants to make a mountain out of a molehill later on, subsequently, they would have legal legs to stand on. That's all that is. So if you read from city law, their interpretation, their advisement, so fine, table it for now. It's absolutely fine. But the responsibility was on me to make sure this was communicated, and I got it to you as quickly as I could, despite personal and professional responsibilities. So thank you for your patience. And again, if you need me back or we need to have follow-up, more than pleased to do that for the time being. I appreciate everyone's thoughtful conversation with it. And as a final note, before I'm going to have to step away, Dem, text me if you really need me to come back, and I'll dial back in. But our superstructure, it doesn't matter what our bylaws say. If city law interprets the charter, local law, state law, state constitution, federal law, federal constitution, and says you're not in, your bylaws are not in compliance, then it is beholden on us at some point to act in a timely fashion. This is not that moment, but we will have to act. So I just want to remind everyone of the structure. So that's it. So yeah, no, it's fine. Table it. It's absolutely fine. But everyone in the room is aware. And I think someone once said to me, we all learned the definition of shall in 4th grade. So yeah, so tongue in cheek, you got to have a little levity. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you again. Angel, I'd like for you to speak.
Sure. I asked them to not call on me before because, like I've said many times, I always try to offer advice that's to the benefit of the board. I don't benefit from my own advice. If I did, I wouldn't be here. But the idea that everyone is going to be off the board because of any of these reasons or ineligible, that's inaccurate. I haven't seen any rationale for that. The idea that the board is going to be crippled by term limits, I've been disagreeing with that from the moment that members have, were first expressing that. We have had the experience for years of significant turnover on this board, like no less than 10 for the last 10 years. So to say, because we're going to lose in 2027, 2 term limits, 8 people, 8. In 2025, we received 15 new board members. So it just doesn't, the math doesn't work there. The bylaws conversation as it relates to elections and eligibility, like Nosa said, was raised back in the spring. You all know what happened then. Then that motion on the suggestion that I had made about eligibility being based on whether you could fulfill the entire term as spelled out, as defined in the bylaws, that the term is 2 years, starting this date and that date. Like, we know those are facts. And then, adding to that, that's how you're eligible if you can fulfill that whole term. For whatever reasons, the body decided to not move forward with that motion. And here we are talking about the same exact thing and trying to wrap our heads around getting back to how can we do that? I'm like, you could have done it in the spring. Okay. The anticipation of impacts of forthcoming board membership term limits, that's been years and nothing was done. Other boards did act. We did not, for whatever reasons. So we had to scramble or otherwise have egg on our face to figure out something. I think that, what was passed was clean enough. I think that, my suggestion would have made it even cleaner, but okay, here we are. The subsequent question about shall, I was about to have an aneurysm about that conversation. I'm like, you're not here, respectfully, to argue about your rules as a body. You're here to serve the needs of the community, but it's so enticing and so exciting to talk about he said, she said, and this means that means. So much time instead of just getting to it, like, okay, can we agree that, 2 plus 2 is 4? Yes, good, break. Now let's talk about the community. Instead, it's, many months, of this conversation again and again. I was talking to them before this meeting, the bit about the duration of a term and the eligibility, perhaps it's something as simple, because I think about it in good faith, something as simple as just spelling it out without creating anything new, just using what you have already and just spell it out. Eligibility is for candidacy for an office is blah, blah. All the other stuff, again, as was discussed in the spring, this 1 year, this cut it off, you're gonna be subject to constant, this is fact, constant special elections. If you wanna do that, go ahead. I don't vote, doesn't make me any, never mind. Other boards do have 1 year terms for their officers, and they repeat all the time. How they do that, I have no idea. But if you all wanna do that, go right ahead. But since I've been working with you all, you've had 2 year terms and it's worked fine. So the only problem to solve is this anticipated, term limits thing in 2027. And I don't know that had to be so complex, but it's been made so complex to the point that we're still talking about this. And the elections committee, the question posed to the elections committee about someone's eligibility would have been very easy to address if we had just passed that motion. I still think it was easy to address because I think it's a simple interpretation. But you have to be looking at it in good faith. Like Sage said, you could define any word a million different ways. But why are we spending the time, focusing on how to define a word or a phrase or a term 100 different ways instead of just, can we just agree on this and just get back to work? It's been again and again, and people throw out ideas about this is going to be apocalyptic for the board. I'm like, it is not. And if that's the idea, then if someone could spell it out in math, then I think it would help everyone. I had made a suggestion last week. Someone was fussing about election stuff. I'm like, look, maybe in the future, if it's a matter of anticipating, who's going to be eligible to run, you look at your list of 50 members and you just compare it to term limits, and you can pull out, okay, these 7 members will not be able to fulfill the full 24 months, so they're ineligible. So you can pick from the remaining, what number did I say, 7?
Yes.
The remaining 43, and those are your candidates. Last thing I'll say is our process is crazy simple, and you wouldn't have known it. Other boards literally interview their candidates for office. There's the elections committee, not tomorrow. The elections committee is a nominating committee, blah, blah, blah. Whatever they call it, they receive their nominees and they interview the candidates, and that committee determines who gets put on a ballot. That's so many miles removed from anything we're doing now. Maybe y'all did it back in, before, but you haven't done it since. And based on our recent experience, I just find that, it would be a vast improvement perhaps, but, I think you have to enter it with, with goodwill and not looking for complication where complication is perhaps not necessary. Like Xavier said, I was the one that was the wise ass saying that we learned what SHA was in the 4th grade. We also did elections for class president in the 4th grade, a piece of paper with 3 names on it, you check one. That's it. There's been so much agita with all this election stuff. You guys don't need to be wasting your time so much, respectfully. Instead of just get back to the work.
There wasn't. I don't remember too many people talking about this, and I don't recall this impacting really our election at all this time. I think that, like I said, we can do this, we cannot do it. I don't see when would the next election be now, 2027 for 2028? I don't even think it'll be a problem on that one, or even the one after. If we want to put something in there to shore this up, fine. I'm of the mind, like Angel too, though, that had we passed that months ago at this table, which, we put it out there, some people were for it, we wouldn't even be having these conversations anymore. The idea of 1-year elections is absurd. I think that the whole 8-year term they've done all this to disempower community boards, and we're playing right into their hands. Elections every year, do this, do that. We're not even doing work anymore. Every meeting is becoming about this. So if we just want to leave it as it is for now, let's do that. If we want to put some language in to firm this up, we can. I don't think it matters tonight. So I'll just go around the table and see what each person wants to do. Jewel?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm for adding it.
For adding it. Yeah, good.
And I'm not concerned about shall. The shall appears 15,000 times prior to that, so.
And I thought I knew what it meant without the definition, yeah.
Just a little bit more, I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm listening to, in terms of like the reappointment versus term limited, and if there needs to be some language there, and, you know, Xavier's point is like, this is coming from the law department, so if this is their guidance, I appreciate their guidance. At one point, they even said like, do 1-year terms, let's not talk about that, but that's their guidance, so I appreciate the guidance, and if it was up to me, I would add that sentence, that to the bylaws.
Okay, Valerie?
I don't know, I haven't been here that long to make the decision either, you know, I mean, shall and all this other stuff, I go with what,
By the way,
Xavier says.
the 1-year term, what they're leaving out is, I believe, with the reappointment thing, it could have the same impact. Sometimes they make comments that are solving issue. I'm like, wait, I don't know if that actually solves that issue, but I agree with putting the language in. So,
Reappointment,
yeah,
is it definite that the reappointment is gonna happen?
okay. Well, I know.
So that it ends up being the same thing,
No. We gotta. Okay, so no, it's not
It's not the
definite,
same.
right? But let's just talk about it. I don't know that a sitting chair in the history of a community board has ever not been reappointed. I heard now that it happened once. That there was some political, I don't know who it was, I asked because of this very reason, has this ever happened? And I heard one time it happened, and I believe that it was reversed. So even the one time that it happened, they ended up not removing that person as chair. So, I mean, it would be like talking about any hypothetical situation that has never happened with hundreds of thousands of things. Sure, it could happen, but it never has. There's no precedent for a sitting chair up for reappointment to be not reappointed during their term. Meaning, that's never been a reason that a chair has not been able to finish a term. Now, they could have gone sick, stepped aside, whatever, but that would not be a reason, as far as I know, that a chair of a community board has not been able to finish their term. No. Now, could it happen? Yes. But has it happened? No. That's the answer. So, yeah, I mean, that's really Sage.
I just think we should move on to the next thing.
Okay, I like that, short and sweet. Jessica?
So I think we should add the statement and also change shall to must. In that it can be read as permissive and not mandatory. Thank you. Doesn't have to happen tonight.
Yeah, okay, so that's the key. Jose? Can you hear me? All right, look, I'm hearing two, like, let's, see, one, let's do it tonight, one, let's do it, but we don't have to do it tonight, and I'm of the kind of like, yeah, let's probably do it, but maybe we don't have to do it tonight. So I'm gonna say, let's table it if everybody's okay with that. Okay, we're all good with that? Great. Now let's move into the board oversight, okay? Well, I mean, let's just have a discussion, Sage. I'd like to give you the floor first. If you want to start talking, I'm familiar with what you've presented and now this, and so I guess we could just have a conversation.
Yeah, I wonder what the best way to do this is, just because that conversation took like about an hour.
I know.
And this feels like it's a lot more stuff.
I didn't get that. Could you try it?
So I can repeat this. So kind of I'm down for whatever people think. I'm curious what sort of the issues are that people want to focus on. If anybody has ideas or is specifically opposed to things in here. I still think the board oversight committee is a good idea. I like these sort of like 5 issue areas and open to whatever happens after that.
I'll go first. I guess we could keep it a short conversation, but I voted last month to continue for the evolution of it. So I do agree that it should exist. I even agree with things that it would be covering. And I say this now, I'm going to be chair in January. I would like for there to be a committee to handle a lot of this, to allow the executive committee to focus with the chairs of the committees at the table on what the work of the community that needs to be done. That we do not need to be having hearings about attendance. I think currently we don't really have a procedure in place for dealing with board member grievances amongst members. We constantly hear that they've been sent to the borough president or this and that, and we don't hear anything. We have no mechanisms in place. And it's not, and this is my opinion, to even just necessarily be penal as much as it is to have a setting where, you know, there can be amicable dispute resolution. There's the ability, we've been talking about getting new members, but there's just a lot of things this committee could do. I think my only issues were that I thought on at least some of it, it should be advisory to executive. I do agree, and I said that from day one. I do agree the chair should not be on this committee, and the chair should not chair this committee. I'm still of the mind that the chair should, the vice chair, the secretary, and the officer, secretary and treasurer should all be on the committee. I do think that the committee should have 5 to 7 people, and the chair should be able to appoint the rest. And maybe if it's 5, it's even more fair because then the chair only is appointing less than the amount of officers that are on there that the chair couldn't appoint to keep that balance. And then my last thing would be as to who chairs the committee. I still think that should be up to the chair. So, and I know that the fear is that, well, then how does it check the chair? And that's where I don't feel so comfortable talking about it anymore. But I don't know if I've seen that problem, that there's need to be a committee to check the behavior of the chair. Although I could agree that there have been times where the chair may have been relied on too much and not been able to necessarily just deliver on everything that they needed to, but it all sits with the chair, so to speak. And then it's kind of like, well, how do we get the ball moving if the chair is resistant to that? So, I mean, I'm open-minded to all of it, as I have been, but my things are, at least, like, I'll give you an example, and I think it has to be changed in general. Our attendance hearings have been totally ineffective, and that cannot continue for 2 reasons. We've wasted a ton of time, and we've kept on a ton of people that probably should not have been kept on. And it prevents people from doing the work. And that's not any knock. They're great members, they're just not able to come. And it's difficult because we sit at a table, we get to know each other, and it's possible that this board oversight committee could be more impartial, but I don't know that it could. I think maybe the same challenges could present itself. Why the idea was let the board oversight committee decide and refer to a third party. Oath is one that could do it, or there could be others, but Oath kind of makes it easy. Oath then issues a recommendation back to the board based off our procedures, which we already have. We just don't enforce them. We have. You missed this many meetings, excused, not excused, doesn't really matter, and you're off. And then the executive could make that decision. The other idea, and this would be and I'll let you go, to protect board oversight. If you make a contract, right, and you probably know this better than me, but I made a contract recently, full disclosure, right, where somebody wants to open 5 restaurants, and they have to do it within a year. And if they didn't do it within a year, they would be penalized. Now they're afraid because they could come to me, and every time they bring me a location, I can just say no, and then there's no way they can fulfill that requirement. But there's a term in there that I cannot withhold that unreasonably. Meaning, if they come and they give me a location, if I give them just some bogus answer, that does not hold up. So board oversight is making recommendations to executive. There could be language in there where it's like, the executive cannot, withhold accepting the recommendation of board oversight for no real reason. You know what I mean? It simply could be like, oh, well, we like that person and that group doesn't like that. You know what I mean? That's not a valid reason. You need a valid reason. So with that said, I support it. I support all the work that it would undertake, as you said. I support the chair not being on it, those 3 officers being on it. The only 2 things I have are, I think it should be advisory, and that the executive cannot withhold those recommendations without real valid reason, and that the chair appoints the other members and the chair of the committee. I think those are my things, and that would be it.
Which things should be advisory?
The attendance recommendations, but again, I don't think that those should even be coming straight to us. I think you would be the intake, right? Somebody hits the threshold, they come in, the board oversight decides whether to refer them to a third party or not. Then they go to the third party. That third party issues their recommendation back to the full board. I talked to Angel about this before the meeting, into looking into a mechanism where, this third party goes, A, remove them, B, probation, C, keep them on, and we have to just go with what it is. There's no more like, if they say A, remove, it's removed. So now we're not really giving the executive any power. We're just saying you just have to enforce to the full board that this is the position that's taken. The executive does not go, oh, well, they said A, unless there's some egregious oversight that was committed by that third party, like where, I don't know, let's use an example. They attributed somebody else's absences to the wrong person. I don't know, something like that. The grievances about between board members, if some action had to be taken to remove a board member because of misconduct, that would go. Granted, if that person happened to be the board chair, then they would be recused from that, and the vice chair would be chairing that meeting at executive, so it wouldn't really matter. I think if the fear is that the reach of the board chair is going to influence everything, which I don't think it does, I don't think it ever really has, that's always going to be an issue that we have to contend with, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, but usually when any of this happens, it's, okay. Jewel, did you have something?
Do you wanna formulate that, or you're okay?
Oh, I'm just thinking, like, why does it have to go to executive at all? Like, can't the full board just ratify any decision, like what happens with every committee? I think the only reason it would go to executive at all is just because that's what executive does right now. But I think the purpose of the board oversight committee is to make it so that executive doesn't have to do that. So the board oversight committee, like every other committee, would just present to the full board, be like, this is what we want to do. Everybody votes on it. It just skips the step of executive committee because
I think the question is, because why are we taking? See, to me, the why is what matters, right? Are we taking it from executive because we didn't trust that executive would make the right decision, or are we taking it from executive to give them the ability to do more work? I think, in my opinion, it's to give the executive the time to do more meaningful work. But then that committee is built the way it is because it is always been relied on to make those decisions. We shouldn't be taking it from that committee simply because the committee is now chosen to pursue a nobler cause. It's to save them time, meaning now instead of sitting there with 6 attendance hearings for 3 hours, they just get 6 recommendations that, unless there's anything wrong with their standard, I still think it centralizes it there. I think now you have a board oversight committee, you have an executive committee, who's controlling what, who's doing this. I personally don't care. On a personal level, I could really care less as long as the right decisions are being made the next 2 years where they're coming from. My concern is looking at it to the future. I don't know what executive has done to not be able to continue to maintain this decision making. And the only one I will say is the lack of being able to enforce attendance, which I will tell you right now, if I had $1 million, I'd go to Las Vegas and bet that the board oversight committee won't be able to do it effectively either, unless we bring a third party into it. So that's just my opinion. Because it's gonna, like oath, the city, it goes before like a tribunal. So like if you have let's say a violation, right, for a property, and you want to dispute it, you go and have a hearing down on well, now they can do them online, Zoom, on the phone, or you go down to like John Street, and you literally sit there with like it's not like a judge, it's like a city officer or whatever, and they make a ruling. They have a hearing, they hear you out, and then they usually issue their decision in 30 days. In this case, that would be a decision about whether that board member is continuing to serve, is on probation, or is removed. That would come back, and what I'm saying is that the board would not have, there would not be any more deliberation unless there was some like information that was found out that they weren't given, we would just adopt a recommendation, but it would still just have to go through a committee before going to full board, but it would just be like to stamp it. It's similar to
Two
what we've done.
questions. Again?
Yep. Let me just finish. It's similar to what we've done with liquor licenses, which is if you meet certain requirements, the district manager's office is kind of rubber stamping you because we don't really need to see all those anymore. This is just a rubber stamp. Again, this will make things more effective than not. The issue, in my opinion, has never been about who's making these decisions. It's that we could finally just start making them efficiently and effectively. It's the same conversation we just had about elections, is that this board has spent altogether too much time on talking about how we operate as a board. If you came into a meeting and you were from this community, you would not know what the hell we were doing half the time because we're just talking about ourselves. That's just my opinion. Jessica? Jewel, go ahead. No, sorry, Jewel and Jessica.
So, yeah, so while I voted no last time, it was because, the terminology, the evolution of the,
It was vague.
so that was it. But the concept, I'm in agreement with the concept of this. In terms of advisory, I'm in agreement with that. I don't agree with having the vice chair have this much of a role, power, chair with this committee. I don't agree with that at all. Other than that, everything else, I think, I'm okay with.
You sound like you agree with me. And Sage, both.
I don't see the vice chair, I don't, people can say, well, they don't, that particular role does not have enough to do. That's not the point of the vice chair. It really is in the absence of the chair. So we can assign some roles to that person, but that's not necessary. I think someone can chair that. And in terms of what you said about the executive committee, based on the facts that are presented in terms of a member and their attendance, I don't know what the problem is in terms of based on the facts and the evidence, a decision is made. And that might sound a little heartless. I have no problem. When I was on the community advice at the CAB at Metropolitan Hospital, I served so many roles: chair, secretary, and the secretary role is not the light role. I realize that because you're looking at attendance. But that's a fact, that's something that's necessary, and, deal with it. I mean, I know Rosa says all the time, attendance, but I agree with her with that. If you choose to be part of this board, that's a part of what you have to do. You have to come here, you have to show up, you have to be on 2 committees, you have to come to the full board. And if that's not a concept that you can, understand and deal with, then perhaps you should rethink your decision-making. So, so those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Jessica?
I hear you 100% that we're not talking about the community stuff, but I do think this is important to advance in that we have spent a lot of time, and I think there's consensus that by and large this is a good thing. I have one direct question and then one sort of procedural question or query or open point of inquiry. The direct question is, does Oath have the capacity to support us in this? Has that been confirmed? And then maybe I can just ask my other question because I think that's a pretty straightforward. The other question or suggestion is, our bylaws mandate a minimum 28 days ahead of a vote to amend. But I think some of the points of question here are very specific aspects of potential debate that perhaps more than the 5 of us around this, 6 of us around this table should, consider weighing in on. And it may help us move this forward effectively amongst a body of almost 50 members to think about what that process is going to be and how we may want to incorporate and manage feedback very specifically. Choice is empowering, and if board members are asked specifically about certain aspects of this change, I think you're more likely to get A, understanding about what we're asking, and B, buy-in down the line. So I would recommend that we clarify where there is not 100% consensus around the table and figure out how to package those elements of potential debate to put forward for discussion in the process of engaging the full board towards adopting these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. To the first question, I know they can do it. As to how much their ability to do that is, or I don't know, I'd have to check. My understanding is that they really can do whatever hearings they're issued out. They're also not the only third party we could go to. Don't ask me what the other third parties are yet, but this is something I can continue discussing with Angel, but I'm confident that if we have to, we can find a reliable third party to address these. I've just referenced Oath because that has been one presented that could do it. But yeah, I agree. Before we actually start that, we have to make sure that it's something that can continue to work. So good question on that. I will hope to have more information. On the second one, I agree to an extent in that if we do something like that, we really distill this down and make it simple. Not that the members aren't able to follow something complicated, but that, nobody's going to want to sit there and look at the whole bylaws with a bunch of markups and then expect everybody to come back to the table or have a discussion. What I'm hearing at this table, and I could be wrong, is that nobody is now really, or let me not say nobody, there seems to be more consensus that this is a good thing, that everything that it would fall under its purview is also okay, but the makeup of the committee, who chairs it, and whether it's advisory or not, are what seem to be what is maybe still up for deliberation. Another point I think that's worth making is how much do the bylaws really have to be changed to make this committee? I mean, there is really nothing from stopping a chair, somebody from saying, okay, let's just change the language of the board office oversight committee to the board oversight committee, change that description a little bit to not, I think right now it says staff, you could just add and member, whatever, add a few things. You have to make some changes.
Sorry to interrupt, Dem, but you maybe don't even have to do that, where you can institute a special committee at any point. So this could be made, at the will of the chair, and it could operate, according to.
Right. Thank you for saying that. I was trying to be a little bit more, like we could do it this way because we're at a bylaws meeting, but Jessica's 100% right. There's nothing stopping from a chair from saying right now, like, this is what this committee is going to do, and this, and that. If we wanted to give it just a little bit more structure that wasn't all on a chair and say, we like this idea for the foreseeable future, so we don't want it to be impacted by the whim of a chair, then that's why we would go down this road, but I think without having to overcomplicate it. Those are my thoughts. So then I'll go Sage and then Nelson.
So I thought one of the assumptions was that this would be a standing committee in the bylaws. And I don't know, do people disagree with that?
Well, no, I don't, because I was saying, I just don't think we have to overcomplicate the bylaws, I agree with Jessica that it could just be made, but I feel like, and I'm in agreement with what Jessica also said, and that we've spent a lot of time at this table, and it's okay if it becomes a part of the bylaws as a committee, as long as we are all happy and okay, or at least consensus with how it's going to be structured. That's my opinion.
Okay, so I have a preference for it being a standing committee in the bylaws. Okay. And how it's structured, I'm open to any ideas people have that people generally agree with. Yeah.
Okay, Nelson?
Sage, you put a lot of work into this, so I want to thank you for the work that we've done. Just remind me, at the last full board meeting, wasn't there a discussion where it was described to be, office oversight to become board oversight?
Yes.
And didn't we take a vote on that?
Yes.
Didn't the full board vote on
To
that?
support the evolution of the office oversight
Right,
committee.
so the name, with the evolution of the board oversight into office oversight, the name has changed. Is that not what we voted on? Because
We
that's
haven't
what I
voted
said.
on the name change yet. We're voting on that it will happen, that we support it happening.
Yeah, so that we are no longer, and it sounds like we're not like debating like whether to
No.
do it, but
No,
how to do
how
it.
do we do it?
Right, and so if it's evolving, and already that's a standing committee, office oversight, right?
It's not a
'Cause
standing
listed- Well, it's listed as the creation of the chair,
Right.
right? And if you know, I think the only standing committee according to the charter was what, district meeting?
Land use.
But it's land use. So, I mean, we can, you can call it whatever you want, but the only one according to our
It's
charter
land use.
is land use. There can be all the points that Sage put in, but they could be like bullet points, like for instance, board,
You can make an appendix
you
even
know,
to
board
it.
training, attendance, blah, blah, 4 or 5 dots. Because if you try to put everything in there, you're gonna always miss something, and then you put an appendix, and then we'll revise as needed by the blah, 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 blah. You know, because the work is there, you know, even the composition of the committee, you can put in a bullet point about that, will be determined as the needs of the community board arises, or whatever, you know.
Jewel, any thoughts? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just.
I like what Lisa just said. So, but you seem to have, Sage, you seem to have a point about considering this as a standing committee, and with that, all that entails. And in your mind, what does that entail as opposed to being like a special committee or an other committee?
This is just sort of like a permanent institution in the bylaws rather than something that.
The whim of a chair,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, that's
like,
what I was.
Like this bylaws committee, like Xavier just decided to make it and now we're here. The board oversight committee would be like.
There.
Yeah, and I think would be like one of the committees that somebody is on, of their two, and yeah, would be like a frequent thing, and then everybody would come to know like, which committee are you on? The board oversight committee.
Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
So in terms of that, our resident attorney, would that be something like, so let's say it's not listed in the charter, but would you say for the purposes to ensure a well-operated, you know, like have almost like a preamble, the board of, you know, CB11 will have a board oversight committee that will be tasked with blah, blah, blah. And will, for all intents and purposes, be considered a permanent committee, for administrative purposes. I don't know if you can put all that.
I don't think we need, I think all we need to do is put it in the section of the bylaws that talks about standing committees. And, which is what, it's already in here, there's like a lot of other stuff, but you just have a section for standing committees and it already says there shall be at all times, and this is the motion that we voted on as well the other day. It says the motion says there should at all times be a standing committee or a committee dedicated to whatever we said it was dedicated to. I think I just copied like the text that was in here.
Okay.
Yeah, there should all times be a committee charged with overseeing the effective, transparent, and accountable operation of the board, and that was it. And then we could further, if we agree to it, which is what we do for some of the other standing committees, that like they're gonna do membership development, grievances, disciplinary due process things, maybe interpreting the bylaws. That could be like a advisory.
What section is that, Sage?
The sections are hard because.
Yeah, I would want to park the interpreting the bylaws.
So it's,
I just want to
I don't, we don't need that.
it's article, yeah,
I know what he's talking about. I just.
Article 5, Section 2, 4, yeah.
Article 4.
At the top of the red line, the page is 29.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Question, point of clarification.
Yep.
So, yeah, when you all keep saying it's like an evolution of office oversight, but yet some folks are saying this is an extension of executive, words like that mean something to me. So you can say it's an evolution of the office oversight, but in reality, it's like you're taking things from executive as well.
Mhm.
So that's why I have an issue with like the language of this. So in your opinion, evolution of the office oversight in addition to being changes to executive? I mean, are you not, incorporating what's happening to executive as a result of office oversight?
I mean, that's just like a motion that I'm kind of indifferent. I think it is taking some things from executive. I just didn't think it was necessary.
Point of clarification.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Article 4B1 says, except where, this is the purpose of the executive committee.
Mhm.
Article 4B is purpose. Article 4 is executive committee. 1 states that except where the executive committee shall have expressly delegated such responsibility to another committee. And then it lists the responsibilities of executive. So I think in that, pointing to this other committee to take up, making sure that whatever responsibilities are listed under the board oversight committee are not then also listed under what the executive committee shall be responsible for, then you are totally in compliance, and your executive committee is further well supported by this other standing committee, which is the board oversight committee, which I think is intended to be the purpose, not to undermine the power of the chair so much or check the power of the chair, but to provide an additional layer of support so that the executive committee can continue to do even better work.
I agree.
I think it's in there.
Yep, that's a great catch. That's very helpful.
Yeah, and we did that already in the proposals.
I think, so what do you think, Sage? I'm gonna put it on you. So what do you see now? I think this conversation was helpful because I think we're further along now than we were before. I wish we'd still be closer at this point, but what do you see now?
Well, honestly, I feel like this looks like a lot, but all this really did was lay out in the standing committee portion, like what the board oversight committee is going to do. And then throughout the document where like those various things are referenced, it just added, it's the board oversight committee, not the executive committee that's doing these things.
Can you read it might be helpful, just read out like the bullet points of the main things, just so everyone can hear them.
Sure. So board oversight committee, there should at all times be a committee charged with overseeing the effective, transparent, and accountable operation of the board, included but not limited to the following 5 things. Board member development, including the training and onboarding of members and the transferring of institutional knowledge. That's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
2, receiving, reviewing, and where appropriate, mediating or investigating grievances or complaints submitted by members, board staff, the public, or other relevant parties that concern the functioning processes or conduct of the board. So you can't go to the board oversight committee and be like, Xavier cut me in line at the grocery store. Like you need to investigate this. It needs to be something about
Relative to the board. Yeah.
3, conducting disciplinary, attendance, due process, and other proceedings in accordance with these bylaws and the operating rules and procedures adopted by the board oversight committee. So another part of this was that the board oversight committee, and not us, would come up with its rules and procedures, then present those to the full board to be ratified. So we don't have to get into, that's not going to be in the bylaws, and we're not going to have to get into that in this committee if we don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Though we could, if we need to say like board oversight committee, like this is what you have to do. But I was open to the idea of the board oversight committee just figuring that out without us.
Yeah, I don't think it has to do a bylaw thing.
Yeah. 4, interpreting these bylaws, conducting periodic and ongoing reviews thereof, assessing the board's adherence thereto, and proposing amendments or clarifications to the board as needed to ensure conformity with applicable law and best practices. So that just says like one of the board oversight committee's jobs is going to be do basically what this bylaws committee is doing now.
Is that,
and-
sorry,
Yes.
is that
Go ahead.
different than 4B1F, which is again from the executive committee article, which states that the executive committee will be responsible to review these bylaws on a regular and ongoing basis, including a review of the board's compliance. So we would strike that out and it would now become part of, or not.
Yes. So I think in my red line, I probably even just like copied and pasted that, took it from executive, put it in board oversight, because the executive doesn't really currently like do that. They kind of farm it out to a bylaws committee when necessary, and the board oversight committee would also just kind of do what the bylaws committee does.
It gets farmed out because that's a very case by case specific personal decision. I know a lot of people who felt that what this committee was called for in the first place could have been handled at executive, myself included. But I agree with what would be struck from here, because that's to review them on a regular basis, including a review. But I don't think that they should be proposing actual amendments. I think that's where things get. Because then can executive not do that anymore? I mean, executive should still be able to do that.
I mean, the chair can just propose amendments.
Yeah, I hear you, but then here's my sentiment back now. Does the secretary, the treasurer, and the vice chair all sit on executive too, with the chair? And so then they're on board oversight. But also at the table at executive is every committee chair on the board. I'd have a lot more confidence in that still coming from executive, to be honest with you. And I thought that I have confidence in this group, but if I'm being fully honest, I also had confidence that our executive committee, as currently constructed, could have handled whatever we've done here as well. So I haven't had that. That was a call by a specific chair to make a separate committee. I wouldn't let the fact that that was done make us think we have to make decisions differently. That's just my opinion.
I just think it's covered by the chair being able to do it. Like the chair can just ask the people on the executive committee, hey, do you guys, what do you think of this? And then can just propose it to the full board already. I think it's redundant to
keep that open. I don't know how I feel about that one, but I'm okay with them making sure that everybody's in compliance and enforcing it. I just don't know how I feel about them proposing new amendments.
Okay, I'll add that to the list of things that are kind of set up for debate.
And that was, what number were we at in terms of the number of things?
That was number 4.
And there's one more?
Yes.
Sorry, just a point of clarification. I think they're in Article 9 amendments. There are provisions for any amendments to be made by the chairperson, by the bylaws committee, by the Manhattan Borough president, so any number of entities can make changes. So I don't think it would prohibit the executive committee from proposing a change, but it would allow that responsibility to ensure that if there was a necessary change, it would be handled through the board oversight committee without having to constitute a new committee, or that it would just be part of their purview, I think is what SAGE is intending, not to usurp power from these other entities for perhaps being able to change the bylaws if needed.
I think, you're right. I think my concern more is because, like Sage said, the board chair could do it anyway. So the power part isn't my concern as much as it is that I don't like the idea that changes can be proposed from so many different groups. And that's where I think things can get confusing. I think if I'm looking at this already, to be honest, I find it frustrating that the borough president even gets to talk about our bylaws. But I don't know. I don't personally, again, it's just a thought. I maybe misspoken. Not worried about it usurping power as much as if it's gonna be coming out from executive, the chair, board oversight. That doesn't seem, it almost seems counterintuitive. I think we should be amending the bylaws to make them clearer, instead of adding more layers to how that can be achieved, which I think could be counterproductive possibly. It's just my thought. But I appreciate you clarifying that because it might have sounded like I was saying something differently.
Yeah, so right now, as I propose this draft, and this is again, like, whatever people want, really.
Can you say number 5? I don't know if.
So number 5 was, I think, about hiring.
Oh, okay, got
And
it.
that's more specific, and that isn't really like a board-wide thing.
But that was already on office oversight to begin with, right? Kind of?
I think Office Oversight Committee was just, it said, to assist the executive committee in fulfilling its responsibilities to oversee the functioning of the board office.
Okay,
But it did, when you get into the nitty-gritty,
Yeah.
Office Oversight did have a role in that, but it wasn't in the bylaw.
whatever makes this man's job easier to hire who he needs to hire, I'm for. So if that means it's going through that, I don't care. I don't have too much of an opinion other than we shouldn't be holding up how this office is able to hire and get work done. So, yeah, that's.
Well, the process for the hiring was that the district manager would distill the resumes,
Right.
come up with the ones that best fit.
Right.
And then there were certain people designated by the chair and the district manager who actually was if I remember correctly, the chair, the vice chair, and some other people that as a group reviewed these applications and did an interview. And then from there, rated it, and then just the district manager, once it was discussed and came up with the answer, would then reach out. If we get too many people involved with the hiring,
Doesn't happen.
this is again gonna be, I don't have to clear who I hire, right? Like, in other words, I can see someone, I can interview them, and if I like them, I send it to my boss to sign off. It's not like I just sign off. But, the danger is that we're muddying the waters, trying to clarify things, and we're making things more cumbersome.
Yeah. And if that was the way we did it and it worked, I'm for that.
He knows who he wants to work with.
And
He
he
should
did.
have the most.
And I've been saying that with you since day one. So then we leave it that way.
Whatever the established process.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't as, I have not really been involved in that process ever, but whatever streamlines it is, if that's the way it's been done, it's the easiest.
And
Let's
what
just
most
do
of
it
the
that way.
board oversight or anybody should do is take the recommendation and rubber stamp.
Right, but that's
That's
actually what I was saying. Yeah. Okay, so we heard the 5 things. I just feel it would be helpful that we hear all of them out loud. Go ahead. No, go
Well, I would say
ahead.
no to 5, I leave that to Angel.
Yeah.
And the rest I'm fine with.
I think Angel liked. Do you have a preference for?
There's already a process for the hiring,
Mhm.
which is already fully spelled out. There's no need to change it.
Yeah, so let's
And
leave that.
And it does give the district manager, the opportunity to manage the selection of candidates. The district manager cannot hire anybody. It always has to go back to the members for the members to vote on it. And the members are represented in part in that selection and interviewing process. It's been so long since we hired somebody that, maybe Nuzzle doesn't remember, but the last time we did it, there was 3 of us sitting here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me, it was members as well. So that's already spelled
I
out.
did it twice.
Yeah. It's fine.
Are you, because I know there are other parts of this that weren't really part of the board oversight committee thing.
I'm not looking at this, I don't remember what that is.
The district manager responsibilities.
Yes, this just makes it clearer that the district manager, the blue was the new, right?
Yes.
Obviously the hiring of the district, yeah, this is what we did before, so. Recommendations. Yeah, because I'm reporting back to, so there wasn't a board oversight committee. What the office oversight committee did is it would create a hiring committee from itself. And then we did that. So if I'm reporting back in the same way, just under a different name that I'm reporting back to, that's fine.
No.
Okay, so let's I think.
And then in
we
the
have to
absence of a district manager, the office oversight committee,
Then
it's
it's
hiring committee, and it reviews and, applications and does all that stuff, in the absence of.
So then that could be what the
Yeah,
board
so like,
oversight.
it needs to be clear that whomever hasn't been part of the process, it isn't me hiding in a room by myself making these selections.
Well, I knew
But-
that much.
No, because like some members that haven't been part of it might believe that, that's
Yeah.
just not the case in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I think everybody should just know, based on the way this community board has to operate in general, that things can never be done like that, right? We have to, we can't even vote in private, so, everything needs to be transparent and open. Okay, so 5, we can work it in where the board oversight will do it in the absence of a district manager.
Yeah, so I would just say, there is another section that talks about the district manager, and usually, like, when you create, like, bylaws like this, if you're creating a list of, like, somebody's responsibilities, you kind of have to, like, have the list be exhaustive of, like, the categories, or else somebody might be like, well, if it doesn't say in this list, like, if it was gonna be included here, they would have put it here. And so there are 4 things right now that aren't really related to hiring, and so I think it's useful to have like a 5th thing that's like, also they do this, in case anybody's like, it's not in this section.
Yeah.
And then the specifics of that, so we could also just be like, pursuant to, and then refer to the section later where it does talk about like the district manager, and I think Angel played a role in like actually drafting this language. It's
I like my members.
I think this is yours. Or I like, finessed it a little bit, but it's mostly yours. It's the district manager and other staff and professionals. So there's a section of the bylaws that's like all about the staff. And it says the district manager shall oversee the hiring of additional board staff, professionals, yada, yada, yada. And then the board oversight committee adopts there's like a document that he has that Nilsa, you mentioned before, when you were like, there is a very set in stone hiring process.
Yes, there is.
So the board oversight committee would just like adopt that process, and that process is referenced here in the document. The CB11 employee recruitment and selection procedure adopted by the board oversight committee. And then later it says, in the absence of a district manager, the board oversight committee will do that. And then 2 is, and I'm paraphrasing here, the board oversight committee shall review the district manager's hiring recommendations and present the recommended hiring decision for ratification at the next full board meeting. So I think just reference it in that list of 5 things, and then the details will be in that section, and then more details will be in the actual procedures that I think need to be updated, but can be updated whenever that happens.
And those procedures were revised and approved by the office of the committee
Okay, recently?
in 18.
Okay, I think they need to be.
That's fine, but just so folks know, it wasn't just something I created. Some people are hostile to me creating things, so I want to be clear.
Okay, so I think we're good for tonight. I guess, I know Jewel, I think you're saying you support advisory. Chair decides who chairs the committee. It's not automatically the vice chair. Chair appoints the non-officer seats, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, Valerie, but other than that, you support what the committee would do. Question, standing or just the board chair makes it? Just so I have we can kind of have an idea on everything we talked about, how everybody feels.
In terms of what is.
Should it be like land use, where it's officially a committee that's a part of the bylaws, or is it something like the rest of the committees that are just, they're not actually a part of the bylaws?
Well, I think almost every committee is part of the bylaws.
Well, part of the bylaws, but not in the same way that a land, it would obviously go in the bylaws, you're not gonna leave office oversight in there anymore.
The
You would
term is
change that.
special committee.
Special committee. Special committee or standing committee?
Then the distinction being the standing have to meet every single month,
Right.
spelled out in the bylaws. And the other ones, it isn't specific in that regard.
I mean, realistically
time to
though,
time.
if this was just a standing committee, economic, when does this ever get, no one's gonna do away with it if it's doing a good job. right? I mean, like, it's like, housing is how, like, should housing be concerned about its existence because it's a standing committee?
I don't think standing committees have to meet every month. Are you sure? Where?
Just as a point of reference, the Office Oversight Committee is listed as number 6 as a special committee.
It is, okay. So then this would, if this replaced it, it would become a special committee. I mean, that's what the thinking should be. If that's, we're saying it's the evolution of that committee into that committee. Standing committees are executive, land use.
Executive doesn't necessarily meet every month.
Yeah,
If that's something you guys should review, because I don't think it needs to.
special committees.
17 is where it defines the standards.
I think it just says like from time to time.
So on page 17, 2, where it defines committees, A, it says the board shall conduct business in part through standing committees, which shall exist at all times and conduct business as otherwise described herein. And then it differentiates for the other.
Right, so do we want this to be like a standing committee, like the land use committee, like the executive committee? I think we also said the office oversight.
Standing, you don't,
Standing.
special, you can be whatever you want, right?
Special, there's like very little.
The special committees is gonna be impacted more by the chair, right? Like the chair can just make a special committee.
Standing just feels like a little more. Like,
Standing means it's like it's in, like it's part of the bylaws, like it's a standing committee. I don't think it can be, like if it goes in, and correct me if I'm wrong, like the chair can't just decide to disband it. It exists now, because it's been adopted by the bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
Sorry, all of our named committees, Economic Development and Culture, Environment, Open Space and Parks, Health and Human Services, Housing, Licenses and Permits, Youth and Education, and Public Safety are all considered special committees. They're not standing committees. They're special.
I know.
committees.
Yep. And office oversight too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right,
but the special committee, if a board chair makes a committee, is it a special committee?
I want to correct myself. Our bylaws do not say they have to meet every month, but it does say elsewhere that they have to meet every month, so I'll check that and I'll come back. The distinction that we make between standing and special is that the standings exist at all times.
Right.
Special are.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I will find that language.
Right, so like the special committee, and this is my understanding, if the board chair decides to make a board oversight committee, it would be a special committee. If this committee decides to form a board oversight committee, that could become then a standing committee, meaning then in order to, I think, undo it, you'd have to go through the bylaws. The chair couldn't just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like I think the chair right now could theoretically say there is no more economic development committee. They aren't doing anything, I'm getting rid of them, or I'm gonna reconsolidate that and licenses back together like they used to be. You know, I'm just saying that could technically be done. They could not do that with land use or executive, or should this go in as a standing committee, they could not have that power over it. Jewel?
Gives us the authority to say this is a standing committee.
Well, you mean like the board or?
No, this doesn't.
Oh.
4 or 5 people here.
Well, we don't. It would have to still get approved by the rest of the board.
Yeah, it would be a bylaws
Amendment. Oh, yeah. We're not making that decision. We
So
make
right
it.
now, we're staying special. No, we're not.
Well, no, right now it doesn't exist yet, right? Like, well, what Jewel's saying is like this committee, and it's a good question. This would be a bylaw amendment, like Sage said, like any other amendment we've already passed. They would go to the board, they'd have 28 days to review it, and then we would vote on it at the full board after those 28 days. In order for this, then, if we had proposed for it to be a standing committee, the majority of the board would have to adopt that position for it to go into effect. Should that not happen, then it would not become a standing committee, at which time it actually would then not exist as any committee. Then a chair could theoretically go, okay, but I'm gonna make it a special committee and give it all the same responsibilities than this, but technically it's not, it can be disbanded or whatever at any time. It's all very complicated. It feels unnecessarily complicated. You know, here's a crazy idea. Let me just finish one thought. We could make it a special committee, see how it goes, and then if it's going great, you could make it a standing committee.
But isn't board oversight, isn't that?
It's an evolution.
Yeah, it's
Confused,
another,
I'm good.
Then it would be a special committee,
there's already an oversight committee.
and it's special.
Yeah, I thought we,
It's very special, and then you voted
And
to
just
involve it,
evolving it. That's it.
so.
But he wanted it, but it was always, right, I hear you, but, and that's where I think the ideas have maybe deviated a little bit. You wanted it to be a standing committee.
I wanted to be a
Yeah,
standing committee,
that's what
and
I'm trying
it
to say.
honestly, like, it doesn't really matter,
Okay,
but I just think it's nice.
okay.
And we did, the motion that we passed, every standing committee starts with the language, there shall at all times be, and that's the motion that we voted on, that the full board voted on. And I think this is not something worth really arguing about, I just think it should be.
I don't think any of this is.
Yeah, well, no, I think some of it is, standing committee, I think just, it's nice, we should make it a standing committee.
So the confusion here is this, is because we said evolution of the Office Oversight Committee, that would imply that it's a special committee.
Which
but I-
can be monthly.
Right, but I've heard Sage since the beginning referring to it potentially being a standing committee. So I'm sorry for the confusion, but that's, I guess, where it's coming from. Jessica, I know you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
minor point of clarification here, and I'm not sure that it matters. It's, you know, somewhat semantic, but Bill, to your point, in Article 5A, the only difference, standing committees which shall exist at all times and conduct business as otherwise described herein. Special committees shall be called from time to time by the chairperson or majority vote, and shall conduct business as described herein. So the difference, right, is existing at all times or being called by the chairperson. So I think in Adem, to your point, and maybe this is the kind of pilot, is constituting the committee, you know, and allowing it to exist, seeing how it goes while the work continues to be done, whether it becomes a standing committee, which would then, Sage, be in line with your sort of assertion of an institution that is a part of how the board runs. I think the time frame for doing that would be kind of within the next 2 years. And the time frame for instituting the board oversight committee as an evolution of the office oversight committee as a special committee could happen, as you know, within the next 2 or 3 months, reasonably, without looking like anybody's making any rash decisions about anything, and continuing to engage the full board in helping them understand what's going on and why this is happening towards improved governance, period. Thank you.
There's no reason for anybody to, I just think this is, you know, with all due respect, there's no reason for anybody to argue in favor of it being a special committee instead of a standing committee. Like, there's no real difference. A standing committee feels more like permanent, but it would be in the bylaws anyway. And the standing committee just says that this is like an institution that I think will exist in a more significant capacity, but there's no practical difference. There's no like big step. It's just saying like, we think this is.
You don't think if it was special committee, it would require less bylaw changes? Meaning you could just make it a special committee, give it a description like the rest of them do?
No, there's no rules about what, I just
So I'm
think
thinking.
and I also want to respect the motion that the full board, you know, which said at all times, and that's the language.
I mean, I know, but they don't know what they voted on with that. Let's just be honest here. I mean, if you're gonna, you want to go poll everybody with me and see if they actually think that that's what they were voting for? I don't think that's what the outcome is gonna be. I don't care. Yeah, go ahead,
I want to
Valerie.
ask, but are new members assigned to standing committees mostly or
Special.
or special committees?
Special.
That's not they can be assigned to anything.
I mean, I'm just asking because standing seems to have,
They can be assigned to anything. I mean, standing is land use.
like they have to learn something.
Standing
because
is land use and
standing
executive.
committees.
Generally, a new member is not gonna be on the executive committee. It could happen. But like, if you're talking about new, like if you joined, no.
Yeah, so members can be appointed to every committee except executive.
Right.
Executive, you have to be a chairperson of a committee.
And land use
or an
generally
elect-
doesn't
Or
get.
an elected officer.
Yeah.
How about if you have credentials to be on
On executive?
executive or something?
No, because you would
Well,
need to be, you need to be an officer or chair of a committee.
Before prior.
What? Like, you'd have to be a chair of a special committee or another committee, or you'd have to be an elected officer.
Oh,
There's
just
no,
one.
yeah, there's no other way to get on that committee, yeah.
What executive committee is the officers and then all the committee chairs.
Right.
So,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so no. Unless the chair made a new member a chair of a committee, like the
Which you
first,
could.
which is
You
what
could
they could, but
even
they.
assign it.
people wouldn't do that. All right, look, I know we're all confused, but I think we bring it all back for a minute and we stop getting bogged down and focus on what's really important here is we all agree that there should be a committee that should be doing this stuff. I don't care if it's standing or special, it really doesn't matter. These special committees have been around for a long time, they will continue to be around. The fact of the matter is, if the point is to make this a committee to start doing this work, what's the easiest way to do that? I think it's actually to go through, just be a special committee,
well, it sounds like you do care.
well,
If you don't care, then I would say I care that it's a standing committee.
I'm gonna vote, so then I guess I won't vote either,
Just
since
do
I
it.
don't. Yeah, I know. I'm literally, no, I'm gonna say something. I'm literally trying to give you what you want, not give it to you, I can't give it to you, but make it easier. Because I'm saying, I think the path to be special committee would be much quicker. That's why.
Why?
There's no path. You already have an oversight committee.
I know.
With all due
Exactly, that's
respect,
what you discussed.
if I may,
That's what I'm.
just save yourselves, is what I was saying before.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying before. You don't have to have any of this conversation,
I know that.
right? So help yourselves and stop talking about it. You already have an oversight committee. And you just voted to involve it into board oversight. So that's it.
That's it.
You're done. All you have to do is just change the description of your task for now. That's it.
just
You don't
said
have to, no, but you've been talking about special and standing about for 15 minutes.
Because
Stop
okay.
talking about it.
Okay.
Stop talking about it. Just talk about what it's gonna be and whether you wanna do it or not. And then if you wanna get into, at some point, you really just need to call it a standing committee, then cross that bridge when you get to it. Otherwise, you're gonna be going back and forth. I'm trying to help you save yourselves from yourselves. Because you just keep going back. It's been an incredible game of ping pong. It already exists. You're just adding additional duties. That's it. That's it. Basta. Unless you really just it needs to be a standing committee. Okay.
Okay.
What you need to do is take the liaison, this is what you can spend some time on, is figure out a rule so that the liaison does not have to be here to hold this meeting.
I agree with that.
Because that's just practice, isn't a rule.
Exactly.
This is too much.
Okay,
I have a question, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
If, Angel, I've heard you. You've heard us. In that it exists and we agree that the evolution of it in intent has been put forward. How do you start to make those changes? Because what is now isn't what we've been talking about as intended. So how do you begin to actually, where does that implementation process then happen?
The responsibility of tasking, of creating committees and tasking them with what they're supposed to do falls on the chair. So if the chair already has a script from this committee, be it what this table is agreeing to, be it what Sage has put forward, and a dem in a couple of days will be the chair, then that's it. That's all there's to it.
I've been actually trying to say that this whole time, that it was a quick path and it could happen. But go ahead. I didn't want to have that conversation either.
Listen, I think there's no easier, it's just changing the text, which we've basically already done. It's just typing on a computer and then voting on it. It's not hard.
No, I agree.
It's easy.
We already voted on the name change. We changed the name, changed the description.
Well, we also voted on it. If you're gonna say we voted on something, we voted on it being a standing committee. And I will say that the difference between And the only like real difference between a standing committee and a special committee, I know you don't think it's important, Angel.
It isn't. It says it right there. It isn't. And you said to it isn't.
Where does it say?
I've been listening to you the whole time. You said it isn't important.
Because I don't want to get bogged down in it.
But we are bogged down in it.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
so I will say the difference between a standing committee and a special committee is that a special committee, the chair can just be like, I'm done with this. No
Right.
more of that committee.
Right.
A standing committee means that you need a bylaws amendment to make that committee non-existent.
I mean, I expressed that early on too, that that's the case, but, you know. But, and then that's where my second thing came in. Allow it to just go through the way it is. Let's make it, and if it's good, then we can always do this later. I feel like, why don't we see this committee actually work then instead of talking about it anymore? I think we all agree it could do a good thing. Go ahead, Nelson.
Everything that you've proposed, Sage, is not something that I haven't proposed for office oversight, and I actually gave you my information on doing it. So this is nothing new. It doesn't matter whether it's a standing or it's a special committee, because the committee is the one that's gonna determine the timeline for the work. If they're gonna meet every month, they're gonna meet every month. There are sometimes standing committees where the chair is not working, the standing committee as it's constituted is, and have been disbanded in the past. And we've had committees that have had different names, that have gone through name changes. So I suggest, as the chair of office oversight, that we start getting this done in a way that is easy for the board to understand. And as you see the work coming out of the board oversight committee, then later on, because I'm sure this is not gonna be the only time bylaws will be put together, if you really feel that a name is that important, then that can be, based on the work that is done, we recommend that this committee is always, recognized as a standing committee. But for the purposes of what you wanna do now,
Just make
it's
it,
not necessary to make it a standing committee. Because I think that with the chair-elect that's on this table, and with the informed people that are at this table, hearing you all discuss this, I don't think them is gonna look to disband this. I don't think any chair will look to disband it, because the work it will do is too important to the running of the board.
I'd only disband it if the majority of the board came and asked me to disband it. I'm not gonna disband something because it's, and even then, I would say, why are we disbanding? We haven't even seen it get off the ground. So, no, it would not be disbanded by me. And I support it. I think it's a good idea. I've had a few pushbacks on the more of the intricacies. I think some of us are not all, but as the idea of this committee existing and doing those things, no, I think it's good. And I think we can make an amendment to just officially change the name and the description. And then I could sit with you and all of you, and we can say, this is what it's gonna do now. We don't need to make a bylaw, and we'll make the committee and we'll do it.
Well, if we're amending and we're doing that, then what difference does it make if it's?
You really want to, you want to die on the hill of this standing committee?
Yes, I care, because I think.
You keep saying it doesn't matter, so.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter to you. I think it
No,
matters
you know
to
what, no, what matters to me is that we're still here talking about this. That's what matters to me. If somebody wants to make an amendment right now, go ahead, otherwise I'm not gonna have any more of a conversation about this. I mean, I'm literally saying, I will make the committee the way we've talked about it. And that if it goes well, I will reconvene a bylaw committee to decide if this will be a bylaw.
Well, I didn't think we were gonna vote on this tonight. I'm still curious what people have to say about, like the several bullet points.
Okay, I mean, look, I'm just.
But I want the bylaws amendment to be something that lasts beyond, like, it shouldn't have anything to do with who the chair is right now. It
Yeah, I
should
mean,
just
I
be
hear
that,
you,
like,
but then that's like saying the housing committee does, and I think you have to just also look at the practices of this board. For the most part, I don't see the special committees having been, in my whole time on this board, I don't think, Angel, correct me if I'm wrong, if we've changed one special committee.
No.
All right, there you go. So.
Could I?
Yeah, go
add
ahead,
something
yes,
on the other
please,
end?
yeah.
So you have the Office Oversight Committee that has plenty of responsibility. And it sounds like you all are agreeing on, if not all, most of this additional responsibility. That's a whole hell of a lot of responsibility. I would say that if that Oversight Committee evolves into the Board Oversight Committee with all that responsibility, and it's going about doing its business, and any chair just decides to disband that committee that's doing its work, I would say, well, then the board should understand that it has a responsibility to itself to check that chairperson. Because if the board is going to just be deferring to a chairperson, even when that chairperson is acting completely out of line and completely with no consideration for the work of the board, then I don't see the point, right? If we have any of these committees that have been around forever that are doing jack, right? And they continue to exist and no one stopped them. But then you have this oversight committee that is making sure that staff performance is reviewed, that's making sure the attendance, the rest of the stuff. It's a whole bunch of stuff that's interesting, right? That is actually doing that. For a board chair to just come, never mind, while that's possible, that's wild. And I don't know that if I was a member of anybody, like it's hilarious what you guys do sometimes. If I was a member of a body and a person said that after I've spent my time and done my work to the best of my ability and they're just gonna throw it in the garbage, that person's not gonna be in that position very long. Like that's just beyond the pale. The idea that would be even entertained. You all deserve much more respect than that, and whomever follows you deserve much more respect than that. So the check is, when you get a chairperson that's that disrespectful, check them without any hesitation, him, her, whatever, them, without any consideration whatsoever. Like that's outrageous. It sounds like stuff that's been thought out and well-intentioned. Hey, I spoke to Nilsa a while ago about the piece of like, okay, what do we do when we run into issues as staff with members?
Yes.
Right? We have a long conversation about this. If this committee is gonna take that on as a responsibility, as a staff member, I couldn't be more appreciative. Because the reality that you guys don't understand as members is that we're completely at risk. And it isn't at will, at risk. I've worked at will my whole life. I worked for a bank. Banks don't even consider staff people. But there's a process. At a community board, you're at risk. You guys just wake up in a bad mood, boop, I'm out. I have seen it happen repeatedly to my colleagues. So if the body, the oversight committee, is gonna take that as a responsibility, like we have to be, I'm not saying protect me at all costs. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm being abused, if I'm being taken advantage of, and you're gonna be there to ensure that that's not happening and that that's dealt with, well, amen. Similarly, if this member has an issue with that member, which I have also seen, and it's a tragic, countless members have left because there's been no recourse, right? None, it doesn't exist. If this committee is willing and to do that and will do that, that's also a blessing. And then last thing, there is nowhere else to go for you as a member. There is nowhere else for me to go as a staff member. There's nowhere to go. I've seen members run into issues here, go to the almighty borough president's office. I have nothing, no expectations whatsoever of the borough president's office because I have seen members go and try to get some kind of justice or understanding and see that office do nothing. I know this is being recorded, so I'm saying it on purpose. Seeing those cries go and fall on deaf ears, it takes a lot of guts to go and say to somebody else, I'm in trouble, help me. And it's a disgrace to then someone that's in authority to say, I ain't helping you, without an explanation, without a hearing, without any kind of redress whatsoever. So if this committee is gonna take it upon itself to try to help its fellow members and its staff members, that's a great thing. So then for a chair to come and say, I'm doing away with you.
Let me ask you.
Like that's like that shouldn't even. I don't even see how that would even need to be entertained. Now, if you've had experiences with chairs in the past that are just acting like, you know, some kind of monarch or something, well, like I think then you drop the ball because this isn't a monarchy, right? It's a democracy. And yes, you elect them, but you don't elect them to be God Almighty. You elect them to facilitate. And if they're, you know, bugging out, then you check them.
Let me ask you a question. It might be a stupid question. So, like a special committee right now, right? Let's say the chair gets rid of economic development. Does it then just automatically get taken? It's in the bylaws. So how would that work? Right now, a chair could disband a special committee should they choose to, right? An existing one. So what I'm saying right now is like you have the economic development and culture committee listed in the special committees. If the chair disbands that committee, what happens to that paragraph in the bylaw? Does it have to then go and be, does this have to be updated?
What does it say now?
It probably would be updated. The chair could.
Does it just say may or something like that?
It says that the executive committee, hold on, sorry, the chairperson shall from time to time appoint one or more committees necessary and appropriate to conduct the business of the board. The executive committee may also affirmatively delegate one or more of its responsibilities to one or more such committees. Such committees may seek to address one of the more following. I guess.
So the chair may, is it may?
The chairperson shall
Shall
from time to time.
From time to time.
Yeah.
From time to
Then they don't have to.
Okay. What I'm saying is, like, chairperson says, you know what, no more housing. But housing is in here. It just stays there because it says the housing, or such other committee, I guess the language.
Yeah, like
It's so
there's like
vague.
flexibility there.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
The thing is that some boards organize themselves differently. So I think this is leaving, you know,
Room
flexibility.
for- yeah.
I would always argue to like just stick with these,
Right.
but.
Right. Look, I mean, here's my
Change
thinking.
it.
Yeah, we could, not this, we don't have to do it tonight, we're not doing it tonight. We could, there's just an idea, put a bylaw amendment to change just the language of the special committee for office oversight to read as board oversight. And then it says responsibilities to oversee the functioning of the board office. We can build on that description to more accurately reflect what it'll be doing. And then, you know, make the committee and make it with what it's gonna do and let it start doing what it's gotta do. I mean, that's the idea. We can discuss this further at the next meeting, but my hope is like that we can just actually have this committee formed and doing something. So the things that it's supposed to be doing.
I think we can, so that's exactly what I'm arguing against, is not that. I want it to be a standing committee, and so.
Well,
I feel like you're.
I will not be, no, that's fine. I'm just saying then somebody else will probably be running the meetings I will not be chairing I don't know if we're gonna meet in December yet. I gotta look at the calendar. And I don't know, you know, if this hasn't been addressed yet, maybe we'll keep a bylaw committee, but we'll have to figure out, you know, who the next person is to deal with this, you know, I don't know. I honestly have stayed on as long as I have now with this, because of this. I've given it a lot of time to be discussed. And I thought the point was to get it to start being something for the board. See, if you believe the mission of this committee is so important, that wouldn't concern you so much. I would say not one more day to stall it if we can start getting it done, especially when we're sitting here saying we can make it exactly what we all agreed to at this table to do it. Then, you know, and I'll go then I'll adjourn. You can't trust, you never know what you're getting. But the idea that we're gonna be so skeptical of people that we've elected, then we should be reevaluating way before we're deciding what the decisions of those people are, right? We have to have faith that people will do the right thing. We have to have faith that our fellow members will have to do the right thing. Anything in there could be changed, even if it's in there, if we're not doing the right thing. And I agree with Angel in that there are mechanisms in place to check anybody on this board, regardless of who they are. And if that hasn't happened, it's because we just have chose not to let it happen, not to do it, not because we can't do it. So with that said, I mean, I hope that one way or another it actually happens, and I think it will. But everyone, thank you. Jessica, is that an old hand or a new hand?
No, it's a new hand. Just saying that. Sorry, should it not materialize through the bylaws committee, the executive committee also has the power to institute change
Yep.
to the bylaws. So if it doesn't happen here, and if here doesn't continue beyond next month, then there's still a vehicle for advocating for whatever changes may need to happen. As needed.
Yeah, no, that's, I want the committee to happen, so, I mean, I think everybody else at this table does too. We'll see how that ends up happening. Sage?
I would support it being a special committee if one of the things under its purview was to propose amendments to the bylaws. And then this committee, so as contemplated in this, like this committee would basically cease to exist if this was passed. And the board oversight committee would become basically the bylaws committee.
Yeah,
So if
I
we
gotta think on
want
that, yes.
this kind of work to continue.
Because I don't know though, that I think it's a problem having the bylaws committee exist all this time. Like there's a point where, it's like when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you stare and look too much and you look good and you keep picking at yourself and then eventually that's like what we can do in our laws. Like, the problem, and I'm open to everything. I think we've seen, I will sit and talk ad nauseum. The biggest problem with our bylaws, in my opinion, and this is someone who's chaired this committee, didn't think this committee was necessary, but was like, whatever, is we don't enforce the ones that we have. Not that we need better ones. We do not enforce the bylaws that we have. That has really been the problem. And as you can see, we've had solutions that were there all along and we didn't know. We've had recommendations we could have taken to have made things easier and we didn't do it. So, and I'm not saying that there's learning experiences, there's a growth, but there's just having it exist doesn't necessarily mean it'll make things better either. But listen, I'm open to all things. I'm open to this finding its way to being a standing committee too. When I say I don't care, I mean that. I actually mean that I care that it actually gets made because I said that I think executive needs to be doing something else. As someone who sat on that committee for a long time, it has become a waste of time, and I don't want it to be a waste of time anymore. And I agree with Angel that a lot of this can address a lot of issues, and it can make everyone's life easier. I think anyone in leadership would want this to happen because it would make their lives easier and better. So with that said, we'll adjourn at 8:47. All right, thank you. It still wasn't that bad tonight. It's gone a lot longer than that.